Today we'll be working in my workbook called Clearing a Pathway to the Psalms. This covers Psalms 32, 41. And we have already completed a couple of these Psalms. We are on Psalm 35 today, called The Lord, the Avenger of His People. Now, the Psalms did not have titles like they are shown here as having titles. These were added on later, and I got mine from the New King James. So we're going to go to Psalm 35. Psalm 35, the Lord, the Avenger of His People. Contend, Lord, with those who contend with me. Fight against those who fight against me. Take up the shield and armor. Arise and come to my aid. Brandish spear and javelin against those who pursue me. Say to me, I am your salvation. Those who seek my life be disgraced and put to shame. May those who plot my ruin be turned back in dismay. May they be like chaff before the wind, with the angel of the Lord driving them away. May their path be dark and slippery, with the angel of the Lord pursuing them. Since they have hid their net for me without cause, and without cause dug a pit for me, may ruin overtake them by surprise. May the net they hid entangle them. May they fall into the pit to their ruin. Then my soul will rejoice in the Lord and delight in his salvation. My whole being will exclaim, who is like you, Lord? You rescue the poor from those too strong for them, the poor and needy from those who rob them. Ruthless witnesses come forward. They question me on things I know nothing about. They repay me evil for good and leave me like one bereaved. Yet when they were ill, I put on sackcloth and humbled myself with fasting. When my prayers returned to me unanswered, I went about mourning as though for my friend or brother. I bowed my head in grief as though weeping for my mother. But when I stumbled, they gathered in glee. Assailants gathered against me without my knowledge. They slandered me without ceasing. Like the ungodly, they maliciously mocked. They gnashed their teeth at me. Their teeth at me. How long, Lord, will you look on? Rescue me from their ravages, my precious life from those lions. I will give you thanks in the great assembly. Among the throngs, I will praise you. Do not let those gloat over me, who are my enemies without cause. Do not let those who hate me without reason maliciously wink the eye. They do not speak peaceably, but devise false accusations against those who live quietly in the land. They sneer at me and say, aha, aha, with our own eyes we have seen it. Lord, you have seen this. Do not be silent. Do not be far from me, Lord. Awake and rise to my defense. Contend for me, my Lord and God. Vindicate me in your righteousness, Lord my God. Do not let them gloat over me. Do not let them think, aha, just what we wanted, or say, we have swallowed him up. May all who gloat over my distress be put to shame and confusion. May all who exalt themselves over me be clothed with shame and disgrace. May those who delight in my vindication shout for joy and gladness. May they always say, the Lord be exalted, who delights in the well-being of his servant. My tongue will proclaim your righteousness, your praises all day long. So, first I'd like to do some general comments about the psalm before we do a deep dive. This psalm is part of the first book of Psalms, Psalms 1 through 41. There's 5 books of Psalms. The NIV Study Bible states that Psalm 35 is an appeal against malicious slanderers. It is a part of group of Psalms 34 through 37 that are grouped together because they form a literary unit framed by 2 alphabet acrostic psalms, 34 and 37, which contained wisdom-like instruction and warning about the wicked and the righteous. According to Jameson, Fawcett, and Brown, Psalm 35 is a devotion expressive of a desire for help. According to J. Vernon McGee, Psalm 35 is a plea for the deliverance from his enemies. The only heading that was given with the psalm was that it was of David. The word that translates as of could mean about and not by. So this could mean that someone else wrote it about David or like him in style rather than him writing it. Historically, since David doesn't specifically tell us when it was written, Bible scholars can disagree. For Psalm 35, the Blue Letter Bible believes it was written on David's persecution of Doeg in 1 Samuel 22:19. The Nelson Chronological Bible has it written by David after he instigates the census of Israel and Judah without God's approval in 1 Chronicles 21, 1 through 29. It seems to fit more after instigating the census. Psalm 35 is divided up into several groups. Section 1, the Lord as a warrior, verses 1 through 3. Section 2 is Lord, take vengeance for me, verses 4 through 8. Section 3 is promised praise for anticipated deliverance, verses 9 through 10. Section 4 is like court and like death, verses 11 through 16. Section 5 is Lord, how long will you allow this to continue? Verses 17 and 22. Section 6 is vindicate me in your righteousness, verses 23 to 25. And lastly, section 7, curse evil and reward the good, verses 26 through 28. First section, the Lord as a warrior, verses 1 through 3. In these verses, David uses metaphor as a poetic method, describing God as a warrior. Verse 1 uses repetition and synonymous parallelism. In this verse, how many of the word contend? Contend, 2. How many fight? 2. How about against? There's only one. Oh, against, 2. I see. The second part of the verse is synonymous with the first part of the verse. What are all the references to a warrior you see in these verses? Take up, let's see, fight against those who fight against me, take up the shield and armor, brandish spear and javelin. Even I am your salvation, Savior can be seen in a warrior mode. Notice it's not just the defensive weapons, shield and armor, but offensive weapons, spear and javelin. We will hear David ask for God to take on the offense later in this psalm. Isaiah 59:17 also shows God as a warrior. He put on righteousness as his breastplate and the helmet of salvation on his head. He put on the garments of vengeance and wrapped himself in zeal as in a cloak. The second section, Lord, take vengeance for me, verses 4 through 8. This section is an imprecatory prayer. An imprecatory prayer is a prayer that calls down a curse or judgment upon one's enemies. The purpose is to ask God to act against those who are opposing him and his people, leaving the ultimate judgment to God. These type of prayers are foreign to us in the New Testament world, as we are told to turn the other cheek or pray for our enemies. Moses, Deborah, Jeremiah, and Nehemiah all made imprecatory prayers. David uses synonymous parallelism in one verse in this group. In what verse does the second part say the same as the first part? Verses 4 through 8. I think 4 itself. Yeah, number 4 itself. Okay. David uses a lot of repetition in these verses. How many mays are there? We're talking, again, what verses? We're talking verses 4 through 8. How many mays are there? So 1 may, 2 mays in 4, 1 may in 5, 1 may in 6, 1 may in 8, 2 mays in 8, and 3 mays in 8. So that would be like 8 mays. How many ruins in 4 through 8. Um, ruin 1 and 4. One and 8, and 2 and 8, so 3. Second half of verse 4 and verse 7 and 8 are connected. Compare. Verse 4, may those who plot my ruin be turned back in dismay. Verse 7, since they hid their net for me without cause, and without cause dug a pit for me. Verse 8, may ruin overtake them by surprise. May the net they hid entangle them, and may they fall into the pit to their ruin. We also see verses 5 and 6 are connected. May they be like chaff before the wind, with the angel of the Lord driving them away. May their path be dark and slippery, with the angel of the Lord pursuing them. What is David asking the Lord to do? May those who seek my life be disgraced and put to shame. May those who plot my ruin be turned back in dismay. May they be like chaff before the wind, with the angel of the Lord driving them away. May their path be dark and slippery, with the angel of the Lord pursuing them. Yeah. Okay. I'll get that if I get to 15. May ruin overtake them by surprise. May the net they hid entangle them. May they fall into a pit to their ruin. Section 3, promised praise for anticipated deliverance, verses 9 and 10. In this section, David tells us what he will do if God takes vengeance for him. We know these verses are contingent on the prior verses because of the first word in verse 9. What is that first word? Then. If the Lord does take vengeance for David, then what will David do? His soul will rejoice in the Lord and delight in his salvation. In verse 10, what does the Lord do for the poor? You rescue the poor, and you rescue the poor from those who are too strong. In verses 9, David repeats the word salvation from verse 3, which then connects the whole psalm up to this point. Verses 1 and 3, we see the Lord is a warrior. In verses 4 through 8, David is asking that warrior to fight for him. The winning result of saving will be rejoiced in the soul. In David. Section 4, like court and like death. This section is given this name because David gives us visuals of both court and a death. Words that make us think of a courtroom are ruthless, 11 through 16. Ruthless witnesses come forward. They question me on things I know nothing about. They see, where is it? Where is it? 11 through 16. They sent without ceasing. Where's the word ceasing? Oh, yeah. That's verse 15, probably. They slandered me without ceasing. There you go. Okay. Words that remind us of death are, they leave me like one bereaved, I think. So we're talking, what are we talking about again? We're talking about 11 through 16. 11 through 16. They leave me like one. All right. Well, I know it's in there. So I'm sure you guys have figured it out. I put on I put on sackcloth. I know that one, and humbled myself with fasting when my prayers returned unanswered. I went about mourning as though my friend or brother. I bowed my head in grief as though weeping for my mother. So they leave me like one bereaved. I thought it was right. In repeating the word me, David emphasizes every statement. They repay me evil on things I know nothing about. They question me on things I know nothing about. They repay me evil for good and leave me like one bereaved. They leave me like one bereaved. Assistants gathered against me without my knowledge. They slandered me without ceasing. They gnashed their come on. They uh, they gnashed their teeth at me. So Lord, how long will you allow this continue? Verses 17 to 22. In this section, David asks a question that then gives evidence and then what he will do if the Lord intervenes. What was the question David asked in verse 17? How long, Lord, will you look on? Then David gives us 4 situations that his enemies are doing in his plea for the Lord to do something. Do not let those gloat over me who are my enemies without cause. Do not let those who hate me without reason maliciously wink the eye. They do not speak peacefully, but devise false accusations against those who live quietly in the land. The whole verse, I guess. So I guess I can't go there. Let's see, where are we? They sneer at me and say, aha, with my own eyes we have seen it. David summarizes his examples by saying what in the second half of verse 17? Rescue me from their ravages and my precious life from these lions. Then he concludes his section with nearly the same question as he started in verse 17. What does he say in verse 22? Have you seen this? Do not be silent. Do not be far from me. What will he do if the Lord does rescue him? Verse 18. I'll give you thanks in the great assembly. Maliciously wink the eye means to secretly signal and plot against someone with evil intent and deceit. Section 6 is Vindicate Me in Your Righteousness, verses 23 through 25. In these verses, we have 2 other words that are synonymous with vindicate. What are they? 23 through 25? Let's see, 23 through 25. 2 other words that we have synonymous with vindicate. Defense and then contend, I guess. These verses actually connect back to prior verses. Verse 23 has the word contend. What is a prior verse that has the same word? Oh my goodness. What prior verse has that same word? Contend. Verse 1. That one was easy. Is David basically demanding the same thing in both? Contend, Lord, with those who contend with me. And verse 23. Awake and rise, contend for me, my Lord God. Yes. Verse 24 is the word vindicate, which means clear someone of blame or suspicion, like in court. What are the verse with words dealing with court? We had those. Witnesses come forward, these things. Okay. And verse 25 has the word aha, which prior verse has the same word? Well, that's not that often, so I'm sure we can find it. Trying to do this without the answers in right in front of me makes it difficult. Verse 21. Is David basically saying the same or similar thing in these verses? Yep. They do. Section 7, the last section, is curse evil and reward the good, verses 26 through 28. And verses 26 and 27 are opposites. What word is shown twice in verse 26? May. In verse 27, also be may. I'll go with that for now. Verses 26 and 27 are connected to verses 4 through 8 in the repetition of what word? Verses 4 through 8 in repetition of what word? May. Verse 26 is the same type prayer as verses 4 through 8. What type of prayer is this? Imprecatory. Verses 26 and 27 are also connected to verse 24. They are extensions of the same idea. Vindicate me in your righteousness compared to 27. May those who delight in my vindication shout for joy and gladness. Verse 24, do not let them gloat over me. Compares to verse 26, may all who gloat over my distress be put to shame and confusion. Verse 28 is a concluding verse. So it's about the future action. What does it depend on? That if God follows through. What is David asking in the prior verses to happen so he'll proclaim the Lord's righteousness and praise all day? Get after the wicked ones. So what touches you most about the psalm? I'll leave that to you. Jesus uses the word from verse 19 in John 15:25. The Jews use Psalm 35 as a prayer for divine vindication, protection against enemies, especially those who act with false or unjust motives. It is a lament that includes prayers for God to fight on their behalf and to defeat their adversaries. The psalm is used for endurance and to ask God to act as a warrior for the oppressed, as seen in its use during the times of conflict in the hope for deliverance and victory. And with that, we finish this psalm. I hope you enjoyed it.